Hello everyone, I'm Maurice Munene. In today's session, we are going to discuss how to calculate the mean using the assumed mean or the working mean. And with me here, I have an example that we are going to work out together. So the mass of 100 eggs in grams are shown below. Calculate the mean mark using the assumed mean or working mean of 109. So you see this one is our case of our grouped data, and the next thing that we are supposed to look or to calculate, it is the midpoint. And how do we calculate the midpoint? We had the class intervals and then we divide by 2. So my case here, I'm going to have 101, 100 plus 103 divided by 2. And this one gives me, if I calculate, this one gives me 100 and 1.5. 101.5. If I add 104 plus 105, this one is 105.5. And then if I add 108 plus 111, this one gives me 109. And if I add 112 plus 115, this one I get 113.5. If I add 116 plus 119, this one gives me 117.5. And if I add 120 plus 123, so this one is supposed to be 23 plus 123, this one gives me 121.5. So now the next column that I'm supposed to get, it is get the difference between my midpoint now and the assumed mean that I'm using. That is x minus 109 here. And if I subtract these, here I'll get negative 8. Here I'll get negative 4. Negative 4. And here I'll get a 0. Here I'll get a 4. And here I'll get a 8. And here I'll get a 12. Now the next column for me to calculate, because I know the next column is to get the frequency multiplied by this difference column. And if I multiply 1 times the negative 8, I get this one still being negative 8. And if I multiply 15 multiplied by this, I get negative 60. And if I multiply 42 multiplied by a 0, here I get a 0. And if I multiply that one multiplied by 4, this one I get 124. If I multiply 8 multiplied by 8, I get a 64 here. And if I multiply 3 multiplied by 12, this one I get 36. I get 36. So the next column for me to get, I'm supposed to get my summation of f here, which is equivalent to 1 plus 15 plus 42 plus 31 plus 8, which gives me 100. Remember there were 100x, and then I get the summation of my fd here, which gives me, if I get this, gives me 156. 156. And now I know my mean, that is mean, my mean is given by mean of D, my mean of D will be equivalent to the summation of F D divided by the summation of F. And the summation of FD here, in this case, my summation of FD is equals to 156 divided by 100, and this one gives me 1.56. And now I know the mean of X, or the mean here of the mean of X, or simply what we can say is the X bar will be equivalent to the assumed mean that we had of 109.5 added to 1.56, and this one gives me now my actual mean. If I add the two, I'll get 1.06, sorry, 0.6 grams. So that is how you can calculate the mean using the assumed mean of the grouped data. Next, let us get the mean of a single data or ungrouped data. We're going to work whereby we have the data below maybe represent the data below represent the quantities of 18 packets of milk. That is 499 for all the way to this. Calculate the mean using working assumed mean of 500. So here, the next thing that I'm supposed to do, it is have the column for the D, or the difference column, so that you can get the mean of D, and then we add it to the assumed mean. And here, if I take 495, I subtract 500, here I'm going to get D negative 5. If I take 496 divide minus this, I'll get a negative 4, here. And if I take 493 divide, I'll get a negative 3. And if I take 498 minus 500, I get a negative 2. And if I subtract 499, this one I get a negative 1. And 491 still I get a negative 1. 500 here I get a 0. Then I get a positive 1, and then positive 2, and then positive 3, yeah. Then positive 4, and then positive 5 here, and then positive 6, and then positive 7. So now the next column for me to get is called the summation of the D column, which is equals to, if I add all these, for example, this negative and negative cancels with these two, and then these two cancels with these two, then 3 cancels with these 3, and then 3, we are left with 1 3 here. This 4 cancels with this, and then 5 cancels with this. So I'll be left with 1 3, 1 4, which is 7, and then plus 6, which is a 13, plus 7, which is a 20. So the summation of this column here is equivalent to 20. So now the next thing that I'm supposed to get now, we know that the mean of the this grouped data is equivalent to what? I'm going to get the mean of my D column, the mean of the D, which is equivalent to the summation of D divided by the number of observations, which is equals to n. So how many observations did I have? I had the 18 packets, so this one should be equivalent to 20, then divided by 18. And if I divide that by 18, I'm supposed to get this one being equivalent to 1.11. So now I can say that my mean of x, the mean of x, or simply what we can say is the x is equals to the working mean that we are given, which was 500, then we add to the mean of our difference, which was 1.11. And if I add this, I'm supposed to get now being 501 501.11.11. So that is how you can get the mean using the assumed mean for both grouped data and ungrouped data. And that brings us to the end of this session. I was your trainer, Maurice Munene, and if you have found this of benefit to you, consider subscribing, share, like, and the more you subscribe and you like, that brings some blessings to this channel so that it can reach more and more. Thank you.